Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 Om Mani Padme Hum.
Hello to all my friends, old and new in Singapore. And I'm sorry I can't be with you in person, but I'll try and share a few thoughts on death and bereavement with you over the internet. So the first thing to understand about death is that it's a completely natural process. It is not a punishment. It does not indicate failure. Death is simply the result of being born. And this is what the Buddha said, and this is what we can see with our own eyes, that the basic initial cause of death is birth. Yeah, so there's nothing, we don't need to make such a big deal out of death as it being some final thing, because it's simply the result of birth. And as long as we're ordinary beings in cyclic existence, then after death will come rebirth. Okay. Now, of course, we want to be liberated from this cycle of the rebirth. That's our ultimate aim, because nobody really likes death, and you know, it's a given in our situation. So people often ask me, you know, how do we help somebody who's dying, or how do we ourselves prepare for death? Okay, and I think the best way to help our friends and relatives is not to wait until they're dying to help them. In other words, help them while they're alive by showing them how to do wholesome actions, how to create virtue. Yeah? So instead of encouraging our friends and relatives to do under-the-table business deals, or to lie to cover up for something we did, or to be selfish and greedy, we should really encourage our friends and relatives to be honest, to be generous, to keep good ethical conduct, because in this way they will accumulate a lot of good karma, and they won't have any regrets or feel guilty for actions that they've done during their life. So then when it comes time to die, they can die more peacefully. Yeah. So, you know, that if we really want to help our friends and family while they're alive, that's the time to help them. Okay? Doing ceremonies and pujas and things for them after they're dead is very good, but it doesn't help them as much as helping them while they're alive, because their good karma is going to be the basic thing that they will take with them to their future lives, that will bring good circumstances in their future rebirths, and that will establish the basis for their attaining liberation and full enlightenment. So the pujas and ceremonies we do after people die, those create like a good ambience, some good energy, so that other people's good karma can ripen. But if they haven't created much good karma during their life, we could do zillions of pujas, but it's going to be hard for them to have happiness in their next life. Okay? So the basic thing is really help them in this life. Yeah, encourage them to be generous, encourage them to tell the truth. Yeah? And the way to encourage them to do it is to do it yourself. Okay? You know, so we always like to tell other people, oh, you should be generous, you should have good ethical conduct, but then we do anything we want to. Yeah? So that doesn't work. You know, especially with your children, if you want your children to grow up to be good citizens, you have to be a good citizen and model the behavior that you want your children to have. And that's really, really important. Another way on a practical level to help people before they die is to help them tidy up their affairs, okay? So this could mean making a living will. So a living will tells our relatives how we would like to be treated if we are too sick to make known our wishes ourselves, and as we're dying and unable to speak, what we would like to happen. And so this is, making a living will is actually a huge act of kindness to our family, because it doesn't leave them wondering, what do I do? What does my loved one want? We tell them beforehand, For example, some person may say, if I'm in a vegetative state, don't keep me on life support. Or somebody else may say, if I have a heart attack, I want to be resuscitated. Another person may say, no, I don't want that. So it's an individual thing, and you put that in a living will. And also for people who are Dharma practitioners, it's very good to put in your living will what pujas you would like people to do, or what kind of practice you would like them to do if you're very sick or if you're on the verge of dying. Because if your friends and relatives can come in your room and do a Dharma practice that you're very familiar with while you're dying, then it's easier for your mind to go along with that practice and have a virtuous thought when you die. Okay? So we want to make that known to other people, and we want to know what our friends and relatives want. Similarly, after people die, to know, do they want to be cremated? Do they want to be buried? What do they want? Do they want a memorial service or no? How do they want to be remembered? So it's very good for people to make their wishes known before they die. It's also very good to settle all your debts and to give away as much as possible before you die. In other words, we certainly can't take our physical possessions with us, material possessions with us to the next life. So create good karma while you're alive and give them away. Yeah? And, generate a positive motivation, wanting the recipient to have happiness in its causes, or generate the bodhicitta, wanting to attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings, and then give away your belongings before you die. And that is extremely beneficial to do. If you're working with a family member who can do this, encourage them to do it. If they haven't done it before they die, then take their possessions and make charity of their possessions, and dedicate the merit of that charity for the good rebirth and the liberation and full awakening of your loved one afterwards. Okay? When somebody is dying, it's very good to have the room peaceful. Don't have the television on. That's not what, because what's in our ambience encourages what we think about. And it's extremely important when somebody's dying to take refuge in the three jewels, or to have a virtuous motivation, to generate bodhicitta and to have love and compassion for others. Okay? So before somebody dies, encourage them to apologize to the people they need to apologize, forgive the people they need to forgive. And we should do this too, but not wait until we die, because we don't know if we're going to die quickly or have a long time. And, better to apologize to everybody now. Forgive everybody now. Don't carry these kinds of bad feelings around with you while you're alive. Okay? But especially as you're dying, to clean this up in our own lives and encourage other people to do that. Then when somebody is dying, to have the room as peaceful and quiet as possible. And any friends, I know in Chinese culture you want to have your whole family around you when you're dying. Actually, that could be a little bit noisy and a little bit distracting, because when you die, your body is losing the ability to support the consciousness. So your consciousness is getting more and more subtle. So you need to have a very quiet, peaceful environment. Yeah, you need to say your goodbyes beforehand, and then just be very quiet as you're dying. Maybe have, a monk or nun with you, or a family member who knows the Dharma, who can talk to you about your Dharma practices, talk to you about the Buddha's teachings as you're dying, so that you have virtuous thoughts in your mind, because those virtuous thoughts will make positive karma ripen, and that's what you want to have happen as you're dying, because that ripening of the karma will, determine what we will be reborn as. Okay? So, if people are sobbing, if they're crying, better they do that outside of the room, not in the room with somebody who's sick and somebody who's dying, because we have to remember, if we're helping somebody to die, the focus should be on them. It shouldn't be on our grief. It should be on how can we help them be peaceful? How can we help them dedicate the merit of this life and go forward into their future life with a good motivation? That should be our focus if we're helping somebody else die. Yeah, it doesn't do any good when somebody is dying to look at them and say, "Don't die, I love you too much." That only makes it much harder for them to die. Please don't do that. Yeah, please really encourage them just to look back on their life, rejoice at their good karma, all their good actions, rejoice at the love they shared, and then to go forward into their next life with an attitude of love and compassion for all beings. Yeah, and then if they can die with that kind of idea in their mind, it's very, very good for their rebirth. Another thing is to remind people when they're dying, if they're restless, it could be because they're having certain karmic appearances in their mind of frightful things, and these arise due to their karma, which is again why it's important to encourage them to create virtue and not non-virtue while they're alive. But if they're having some kind of appearances and they're frightened and they're restless, tell them it's just appearances to the mind. Just say it's nothing real, relax, you don't need to respond. It's just an appearance to your mind. If the person is a Dharma practitioner, then remind them of the emptiness of true existence, that there's no truly existent person who is dying, so they don't need to cling on to this life. Yeah, there's no truly existent appearances to the mind, they're just appearances. Okay? Because if they can have this idea about the ultimate nature of reality when they're dying, again, it's going to really smooth things out for them. If your friend or relative has been practicing a specific practice when they're alive, for example, if they have a lot of faith in Amitabha Buddha or in Kuan Yin or in Medicine Buddha or Manjushri, then do that mantra. Do that practice in the room with them and help them to remember that. Chant together with them. Yeah, and because if they remember the Buddha and the Buddha's qualities, then it makes their mind very peaceful. And then even if frightening appearances come, they can turn their mind to the Buddha and imagine the Buddha there with them. Yeah, and that's very good if somebody's dying. Okay. After somebody dies, then, like I said before, we can make charity of their possessions. We can do different Dharma practices and dedicate the merit for their well-being. And then after they die is the time when we can really feel our grief. Okay, and grieving. I found a very good definition of grieving. It's adapting to a change that we didn't want. So, we usually think of grieving as crying and being so sad and so distraught. And let's not think of it that way. let's think of it as adapting to a change that we didn't want. Yeah? And that's what we're doing. Our friend, our dear one, our relative, you know, we had imagined having a life with them in the future, and now that's not going to happen. So we're adapting to that change in how we're thinking about life. And we will adapt. You know, human beings are very resilient. They're very flexible. We will adapt. You know, immediately after somebody we love dies, we feel like, what's going to happen? How am I going to make it? But we will. We always do. It's fine. We just take the time we need to adapt to that change. Okay? I saw once, I was invited to coordinate a memorial service. And it was for a young man who you know, was very successful in his career, had been married to his teenage sweetheart, and they had 3 kids. And his wife grieved in the most remarkable way, because what she said at the memorial service was she just commented on how much love she and her husband had had, and then she said, I'm going to take all of that love and share it with everybody else. And it was beautiful. I mean, she was glowing, you know, which is remarkable you know, in that kind of situation, because they loved each other very much. But she just said, I'm going to take all that love we shared, rejoice at it, and share it with everybody else. Okay? And so it's important, you know, to remember when we're grieving that we're just adapting to that change. And the best way to adapt to it is to take the love and pay it forward and share it with everybody. Okay? Because it's interesting, when we're grieving, we're not grieving the past, because the past is over and done. We can't go back and relive it. Okay? We're not grieving the present, because the present doesn't stay for the next moment. What we're really grieving is our idea of the future. So in grieving the future, we're actually grieving something that has never existed. Isn't that strange? You know, we just had this idea in our mind that this person was going to be with us in the future, you know, and that's not going to happen. So we're just simply releasing that idea. Yeah, that's all. It doesn't have to be a big deal. Yeah. And then we rejoice at having that person in our life for as long as we did, and really rejoice at the love we shared, the virtue we created together, and then just say, I send them forward in their life with a lot of love, and I will go forward in my life with a lot of love. And then, you know, you have a peaceful mind and you work for the benefit of all beings. And in that way, you know, you are really making your life meaningful and helping the other person to go forward. Okay? I know a lot of people in Singapore believe in ghosts, and they're waiting for their relatives to come back and contact them. And I need to tell you a very interesting story here, because when I lived in Singapore some years ago, there was a young woman and her grandmother had passed away. And so they were, you know, the body was in the house and they were all sitting there. And then she went out to get some food for the people. As she was going out, she went out through the kitchen and she tripped over a bucket in the kitchen. Well, when she came back with the food, the whole family was going, ah, you know, Grandma tried to contact us. We heard her in the kitchen. And, you know, and this young woman was trying to say, no, that was me. I was the one who tripped over the bucket. The family wouldn't believe it. Oh, Grandma's around. She's a ghost. And so this is just to show you, relax, you know. Actually, your loved ones have gone on. You know, they're in the intermediate state or maybe in their next life already. So don't worry so much about contacting them or doing something like that, because that just keeps their energy focused here. You know, they've gone on, let them go on. You know, in fact, very often when your loved one's dying, it's very helpful to tell them, you know, please go on with my love and know that everybody else in the family will be well. You know, we'll miss you, but we will be well. We will be happy. We will pray for you. So please go on with love and compassion. Okay? And so to let people go and not cling on to them in this kind of way. Okay, so those are a few ideas that I had. Of course, I could go on for a longer time, but I had 20 minutes for my presentation. So, thank you everybody for listening, and I send you all my regards, and may we all practice well so that when the time of death comes, we can make our transition with a happy mind that is free of regret, free of fear, full of faith and admiration in the qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and full of enthusiasm to practice in our future lives, to never be separated from the Buddha's teachings, and especially from the bodhicitta, the loving, compassionate, altruistic intention to attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. May we never be separated from that. May we never be separated from the wisdom that understands reality. Okay, so I will make prayers for all of us that we can live now in that way and die in that way and carry that on into our future lives. So, thank you. Amitofo.
Om Mani Padme Hum.